let me introduce journalist, author, podcaster, PR guru, and all-round remarkable human being, Mike.
So, here we are, the launch of PR for Humans. And I said to my wife the other night, did you ever in your wildest dreams think that I would be launching a book about PR at the Royal Institution? And she turned to me and said, darling, you're not in my wildest dreams.
It's one of those great books that every publisher wants to publish that tells a really important story and tells it really well.
When we look through the sweep of human history, stories have been part of every chapter of civilization. Those with the ability to assemble powerful stories, both fact and fiction, have shaped nations and companies. They've changed the world. They've hacked the path of history. So stories are really, really important, and stories are really, really powerful. It's not just about PR. This isn't a book really about PR. It's a book about stories. It's a book about people. It's a book about how people connect with their audience.
No, it's wonderful. I mean, I think that what Mike has got is an enormous amount of common sense, and he's genuinely wise. And he doesn't say stupid things. He doesn't say daft things. I do, but he doesn't.
Today, when we look down the road at Westminster and we see what's going on, I just think, where are the storytellers? Where are the leaders? Where are the people who are going to give us a clear, compelling vision of the future that we can believe in? Where are the people who are going to show us the future and say, this is what it looks like, I'm going to take you there? Where are those people?
Mike has got such a gift for storytelling, and it's really walking the talk when he does it. And I think it's a fantastic book for any leader, anybody who wants to get their story out into the world in a really powerful way.
When I was a journalist, I went around the world telling stories of other people. I was an observer, and now I'm much more of a participant. I've got to step into the story. I've got to help an individual find their story, connect with an audience through stories. And in my view, a lot of the business world, a lot of the communications world has gone wrong because the human bit has gone AWOL too much of the time. In public relations, I've never known an industry in such denial. And the truth of it is, PR has a PR problem.
Very thought-provoking comments by Mike, of course, but also by the audience. There were things that I didn't actually think about with respect to how people look at PR and especially how the whole storytelling comes about.
Chris Booth is taking some photos this evening. He's a dear friend of mine. We worked together in Baghdad, and we shared some interesting times in Iraq. Chris now does a lot of photography, and I interviewed him on the podcast, and he's quoted in this book talking about photography. And I want to finish my talk with a quote from Chris. So we were talking about journalism, and we were talking about public relations and crossing over from journalism to communications and what makes a good story. And Chris said, honesty is still valuable. Beauty is appreciated. Truth is still meaningful. And I agree. And that's a thought to hold on to and to share in these times when the world seems dangerous and scary and chaotic. There's beauty in human beings, and there's beauty in stories. Thank you very much.
Tonight was very important and interesting, bringing together of some minds and information for people like myself to really learn from.
I'm going to invite my panelists to join me. JT from Delineate, who's the kind sponsors of tonight's event, Fazana from Curzon PR, and Meg Lana from Finsbury.
So as researchers, we're trying to help business leaders, for brands mostly, and corporates, understand and have some degree of empathy with an audience that they're trying to communicate with. We call it challenge, struggle, resolution, which is a really nice way to help people understand why, whether their communications are going to work.
I think the last 10 years belong to an era where communications was about personalizing the story. We were telling our CEOs, the visionaries and the entrepreneurs to give a human face to their idea. The next 10 years, I think, will belong to authenticity. So gone are the days of let me have a nice video with the CEO saying a really nice story. And we are now moving towards things that people can really connect with. And that's only possible through genuine, authentic content.
Mike, I'm delighted that you've written this book, and I'm particularly delighted that for you the audience is always first. I'm not sure that's true of most people who work in the PR industry. I think an awful lot of people who work in PR, the client is actually first, and not the audience.
One of the things that those of us who've worked in PR agencies know is there's the vanity of the CEO. They want to be in the FT.
The
front page of the FT, without any sense of why or...
So for them, like the FT, Wall Street Journal, Holy Grail, they want to dominate, and therefore they want to be sort of, a thought leader. And actually sometimes, some of their content isn't particularly thoughtful.
I love the event. I mean, I love to be in a sea of storytellers, all exploring the different mediums and the craft for storytelling. Of course, Mike, with his book, he is leading the way in storytelling and the application to communications.
Are most of the business leaders that you work with prepared to show that vulnerability?
No, I always say to them, I mean, if you've had a bad quarterly result, just own it. They feel so scared about doing it, but actually they would build such strong bridges of empathy with their various stakeholders if they were to be a bit more honest, a bit more vulnerable. Nobody's expecting leaders nowadays to be perfect, and if anything, if they are perfect, you just feel a disconnection from them, almost as if they're robotic.
In my experience working with C-suite individuals, they do understand metrics. They understand what the city will report about them. That's often the story that's told in those top tier media when their businesses don't make numbers, they make widgets, services, stuff. And those are the stories that should be told in order to generate business value. However, right now, media measurement typically is counting stuff. I saw an agency recently drop an A4 ream of paper going, that's the coverage we did for our big client. I thought that died in the 80s with shoulder pads, but it's alive and well.
I thought it was an absolutely lovely evening. I really loved Mike's talk at the beginning, and I thought it was a great panel. I learned a lot.
If I was any CEO or anyone in the corporate world, I'd want him by my side, and I feel that has been absolutely guaranteed after what I have seen tonight.
I don't often ask when I see a client with plus 5,000 followers, I get worried because I'm like, do you know, have you done an audit around your fake following? And if you get into a crisis, how many of those would actually be a risk to you? Because they will start retweeting all the bad stories about you very quickly. They can just run with it in like 10 minutes and Twitter will go through the roof.
So I think there is a real danger with data getting in the wrong hands of people. It's probably already happened, and it probably requires a huge education process from our perspectives as human beings to understand that we are hackable, we are susceptible to suggestion. We always have been, actually, but the tools have become much sharper and it's much easier to influence people, and it's a slippery slope.
I'm very pleased to introduce him to any CEO and any business leader out there who wants to be authentic, who wants to get their message to be heard and be respected and received well.
What is your success rate in actually getting those CEOs, advising them to become authentic? Because being authentic is a psychological mind shift, really, isn't it?
Most people in this room will probably agree that authenticity is a really, really powerful aspect when it comes to communications, and as advisors we should do all we can to find the real person and to help them have the confidence to show who they really are to the world, as long as that's not too scary. And on that, the award for the best panelist goes to all of you, because you've all been wonderful. Thank you very much. Well done. Well, it's just a wonderful evening, terrific crowd, some great warmth from the audience, brilliant questions, great panel. This has been one of the truly memorable evenings in my life, and I was so glad that my family were here to celebrate it with me, so I'm really, really thrilled.